Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We are Mainline Executive Coaching. We are Mainline Leadership, Mainline Coaching ACT. We're going to be talking today about something that's really quite interesting. Let me introduce my partner. This is Rich Barron. I'm Michael Bailey. And today we have with us John Burt. Exciting to have John here. This is a great man to be talking about what we will be discussing: strategic planning and leadership. There's this connection here, folks, really and truly. That leadership, great leadership, has that ability to create these wonderful objectives, plans, how to make it happen, set up the system, and then be able to take it and communicate it to the people they've employed, the people that they have brought on to make this happen. That is no easy thing. It is a complicated series of actions and skills and of coordinating talent, developing talent. There's a lot that goes into it, but no worries. We have John with us today, and he's going to help unpack that in a way that's going to be both understandable, exciting, and I believe also inspiring and motivating. So, John, before we get into the whole subject here, again, give us a brief introduction about who you are, your credentials, your all that good stuff, and then let's hit it.
All right. Well, thank you, Michael, and thank you, Rich. Thanks for having me on again. It's always great to join Mainline and have these topics about the different leadership topics and the challenges for leaders in the day. So, name is John Burt. I'm an executive coach. Got 36 plus years in management consulting. So I've worked with over 40 Fortune 100 companies during my career, providing them with guidance and consulting. Much of that at a strategic level, how to think strategically about change projects. And so I've seen how some of those leaders think, how they guide their teams and how they master the art of strategic thinking for their teams. So I'm looking forward to this discussion.
Excellent. So let's get started here. In order to have a strategic plan or put that whole process in place, a great leader is going to come up with what we call, setting the objectives. What are we all about? Where are we going? All that stuff gets in place. Just take it for a moment here and just set the stage so that people understand what is setting the objectives all about.
Well, I think a leader needs to have, first of all, a vision, right? A kind of a purpose for the company. So you're gonna set the company in motion. You're gonna rally all your resources and you're gonna kind of point them in the right direction. But first, you have to have a vision about what it is, where you're taking the team. So typically what I see is that these leaders have the ability to have that vision that might be 3 to 5 years from now, maybe even longer than that, in terms of what they think the company needs to look like. Where does it need to be competing? What types of tools or what type of talent does it need to be able to be competitive out there? So they need to have an awareness of what's happening in the marketplace. They need to have an awareness of what's happening inside of their company. If you think about that book from Jim Collins, Good to Great, right? You have this recognition at some point that you are not acting at your best. You may be good, but you're not great. And so it's that ability to continue to set the vision, but also to recreate the vision and then to bring that vision down to a level within the organization so that each person connects to it.
Very good. Thank you. I'm going to come back to that. How is that developed? How is that promulgated? How is that then perpetuated? We'll come back and discuss that in a moment because that's huge. What's your take on this whole idea of got to have this strategic objectives and plan in terms of, here's the vision and here's what we're going to do to get there? What's your take on that?
Strategic thinking, it takes time. It requires a lot of exposure to strategic roles, if you will. You need to be able to synthesize broader information, participate in these different cultures of curiosity and gather experiences that would allow you to identify and be able to connect the dots, if you will. Strategic thinking takes a lot of experience, not only as a leader, but in your field, because it's got to be something. If you're going to be a strategic thinker in your organization, you need to understand your organization. And creating those objectives and being able to disseminate those down. We were talking before you got on, and John mentioned something very, very interesting about being able to take this vision and these objectives and communicate those down to a level that everybody understands. You may be at a different level where you've had the experience and understand, the terms of the, what is required to get to a certain goal, but not everybody understands that. So it's having the ability to really get that down to folks that understand that, everybody in your organization. If you will, picture a trench, and everybody you work with is down in this trench. They can't see the horizon. You're up and with having the ability to see the horizon, see the vision, see what's out beyond, the walls of the workplace, if you will. And being able to take that, what you see, and know how you need to get there, and really disseminate that information down so everybody clearly sees what you're seeing. Everybody clearly understands what you understand. And so I think, and that takes a lot of skill. It's not just having the vision. Getting the vision is one skill. Being able to get that down to everybody else that's, I think, where the real part of strategic thinking is being able to disseminate that down through the organization.
From what I'm getting about what you guys are telling me is this. Okay, there's the ability to envision something. That vision has got to be powerful. It's got to be compelling. It's got to be one of the things that people buy into, not just intellectually. But, it's almost emotional, even visceral kind of a buy-in. That's what we want. That's why we really feel like people are in it to make it happen. That's one thing. I think this communication thing is another thing. The ability to communicate clearly and simply this vision. That's another skill. And then, of course, there's this strategic thinking that I hear you guys talking about, where it really takes a lot of experience, a lot of going through and doing stuff and being involved and being able to connect the dots and then communicate those dots. So here's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering, these young leaders that are coming up, I'm wondering how well they understand that ability to create a vision that is easy to communicate and that people will find this emotional attachment to and adhere to it. I wonder how well they understand that. And the other thing I wonder is this: how well do they understand the need for experience, hands-on, get in it and deal with it, experience that's required to be able to create a really strong, powerful strategic plan? John, would you talk about that for a few moments?
Yeah, two different things, Maikel, and certainly the thing that I was mentioning to Rich before this we went live today. I just recently had a discussion with a millennial leader, and I was asking her what she appreciated with regard to coaching and mentoring. What were, if she had a great mentoring or coaching session, what would that involve? And she mentioned that she really appreciated leaders who could bring the company vision, the mission, that purpose down to her level, right? Make it very personalized for her and her role, and how she could operate within that vision. So I think that touches on this idea that Richard mentioned, right, where you're a leader, but you're also bringing it to your people in bite-sized chunks, so that they can get their teeth into it and they can understand what their role is to contribute to the vision. I think what I also hear you saying is, okay, so how do you create the vision in the first place, right? I have another client of mine that I'm working with where we were talking about, kind of the day-to-day, how he was getting so involved in the day-to-day that he really didn't have time to think strategically or to work on the vision for the organization. Mm-hmm. I think that's a practiced skill. I mean, there's a number of different techniques in terms of how you can do that with visioning sessions and those sorts of things. But I think that for many leaders, they do get trapped in the day-to-day. They're in that trench, or they're fixing the potholes, but they're not figuring out, where what the next highway system is going to look like, or even if there should be a highway system. And so I think that there needs to be a certain amount of time where you as a leader, pull yourself away from the day-to-day churn, if you will, of the daily operational problems, and spend time thinking about where your organization is going to be or needs to be in 3 to 5 years. That requires you to have a certain understanding of where the marketplace is, what your competitors are doing, kind of the macro environment, maybe the global macro environment for that particular industry. You also need to understand what your particular, in your particular company, what is your unique set of competencies or unique products or services or whatever that may be that you're offering that you think can contribute. So there's, leaders have to be very aware of what's happening out in the marketplace and where their company is in that process. They should be very acutely aware of where their company stands and if they're losing ground or if they need to build new capabilities that they don't have today.
Seems like what you're saying here is this, that if you're one of those leaders that is used to working and the day-to-day stuff and helping the people get these things done and all that, if you're working at that granular level, that may be your comfort zone, right? And to be able to pull back and say, wait a minute, I got managers that can do that. I got other people that can do that. I got to do this other thing called reflecting. I got to do this other thing called thinking big, thinking different. Now that may be for some people very, very uncomfortable to pull away from that because it feels like they're just being pulled back into the everyday stuff. So it's a whole other level of leadership development. Of course, that's where executive coaching can assist you in that. The other is this, the converse of that is the person who's the kind of big picture guy or gal, right? But doesn't really understand the nuts and bolts. So either way, there's a disconnect, whether you're the everyday person can't get to the vision or the big visionary person can't get to understand the everyday kind of stuff, right? So let's talk about those two things.
There is a big difference between developing strategic thinking skills and demonstrating those strategic thinking skills. Just like you said, if you don't understand the nuts and bolts of everything around you, what happens is you end up making decisions in a vacuum. And what I mean by that is you start making decisions based around yourself or what's immediately around you. You've got to be able to take that vision and make those decisions with an understanding how it's going to impact every other department around you, how it's going to impact the world outside your organization. So what you're saying is, being able to really take those skills, that you're developing and demonstrate those to others, that you have the ability to really disseminate what you see out to the rest of the group. You talked about young leaders, and here's, there's a lot of brilliant young leaders out there. There really are. And folks with great vision and the ability to really take that and make something happen with it. But I think a lot of what we're talking about takes time, takes due diligence. It really does. It takes learning not only about your own abilities, but the abilities of those around you, creating teams based on their energy, their talents, and understanding all that around you. Good strategic people, they create connections between people, between other people, between ideas, between plans, and things that others really can see. But on the same hand, strategic thinkers create these ideas and visions that others can't see. It's a skill. It's a definite skill, and there's a lot of due diligence to that, a lot of time it takes to really develop those skills. And so, that's where a coach comes in. That's where a good coach comes in. That's where, we can help. That's one of the things that, as John was talking about with his clients, really having them take the skills and knowledge that we can bring to the table for them and helping them carry that forward.
Excellent. So let's turn this just a little bit here. And I want to turn it in this direction. You mentioned talent several times. I think you have as well, John. This idea of talent development. Leaders have got to take those initial potential talents that they have, and they got to start doing something with them. And they're probably pretty good at getting them to some point, kind of like, good to better to best kind of stuff. But they may not have all the skills and the experience that they really need to have. What happens when you work with an executive coach, John, that is focused on you and your talents and helping you to develop those talents? One, what happens to you as a leader? And then secondly, as Rich was talking about, it's not all about you. What happens when you get that growth happening within yourself? How then do you turn and see it in terms of how do I help my people develop their talents in greater ways?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So great question, Michael. So as you know, with the clients that I'm working with, a lot of them really want to develop this strategic thinking capability or learn how to do it better. One of the things, of course, that I suggest for them, usually straight off the bat, is to find a mentor within the company who and maybe multiple mentors within the company that can help you to and help articulate what the strategy of the company is and how they interpret it. How do they create it? How do they interpret it? That gives you a particular perspective. But I also work with my clients to get them to be more curious, if you will, and asking the questions in terms of what the strategy is, how it was developed, why does it exist, what is it that it's trying to help the company do, what is it trying to help the company achieve. These are just things to get them to be thinking outside of their day to day. And I think you mentioned earlier, a lot of leaders are in their comfort zone. They love the day-to-day churn. They love, solving the day-to-day problems, having a meeting, developing their action lists and those types of things.
Yeah.
That's not strategic thinking, right? They're not thinking about how their competitors are acting in the field. They're not thinking about how, maybe what's happening from a trends perspective. And I'll tell you something that I do. I used to do with my teams a lot, Michael. We used to have these annual or biannual planning sessions where we would try to get the entire team to think more broadly, more strategically about the client. And inevitably, people would drop into their comfort zones. They'd tell you about a particular thing that was happening in a meeting that they had yesterday, and they were really into the grind. But it's that coaching that I think that you provide in that moment to say, lift up a little bit. Let's not worry about the meeting you had last week, and let's not worry about what you're going to do tomorrow. Let's think about where do we want to be at the end of the year? Where do we want to be in 2 years as a team? How do we think we can help this client? How do we think we can help this company move forward? And that takes some practice. It really takes some practice. And so when you're walking through some problems with some of these young leaders, you're asking those questions to get them to start thinking for themselves. Am I thinking about the day-to-day, or am I thinking beyond the headlights? Where is this taking me? If I'm having a frustrating moment, how do I look at this from a long-term perspective and think about the relationship that I'm trying to build or the direction that I'm trying to go? Those are the things that executive coaches can help leaders do, to think differently, to create those mindsets and those habits.
You were talking about they went back to their comfort zone. I remember watching not too long ago a video, and it was about a leader, a very powerful, visionary type of leader, attempting to teach his best people about a new way of thinking and a new way of approaching this process of envisioning and creation. And I'm telling you, every single freaking one of his people reverted back to the way they were doing it. And they were attempting to find some way to formulate. And he said, no, that's not it, Al. You're not getting it. And again and again, he finally said, I'm just going to start talking about, let's see if, like Rich said, I'm going to demonstrate it to you. So see if you can get it that way. Yeah. It was just fascinating to see how they struggled in their own, comfort zone getting out. So Rich, again, we've got talent. And I'll tell you something about coaches, executive coaches. They love talent. They love seeing it there. They love seeing what it is, helping their clients see their own talent. And then let's start pulling up. Let's start lifting up. Let's start taking this to a new place. That's very exciting to executive coaches because they love the development. They love seeing people move into their own. When you've done that with others, I'm going to kind of wind it up here kind of quickly. What has been the experience as you've worked with your people in terms of let's take it, let's get you inspired, let's get you excited, let's start moving this up, and then seeing them engage, and then what comes of it, the fruits thereof?
A good coach will not just basically look at someone's performance. You need to look at performance as a past issue. What you have to look at, what coaches look at, is people's potential. What's their potential? What's their ability? and helping them see their potential going forward. Now, performance, might have got them to where they currently are, but it's not going to get them to the next step. Their potential is. And so that's what good coaches do. They take that potential and harness that power that those individuals have, and that skill and that energy. And man, let's take this. Let's get you moving on. This is what you've got to do. I see this in you. Let's take you to the next step. That's what coaches do. They don't really rely on your performance. They see your potential. And your potential is what is going to get you to the next step. There's tons of people out there with great records, awesome numbers, really good performers. But what is their potential going forward? Because it's about the future. It's not about the now. It's about the future. And that's where coaches really come in and can see that. You look at any athlete, any of these great CEOs out there, anybody that you can think of that has really made a name for themselves. And guess what? Every single one of them is going to tell you about a coach they had. Every one of them. Now, take, for example, some of these people we think about, Steve Jobs, Roger Enrico, Bill Logue, any of these famous athletes that you can think of. Their performance got them to a certain point. It's their potential, and someone that saw that potential and helped them get on, mentored them, coached them, pushed them, showed them a different way, turn the lights on for them, if you will. That's where they got that next level.
So to be clear, what executive coaches do, they're very good at seeing talent. They're very good at seeing the potential. Would you agree? We can see that. We have that kind of perspective. Yeah. It's got the talent that we have. That's not enough.
No.
We see it. Once we get it, the next thing is turning potential into new levels of performance.
Right.
That's the key. Turning it into new levels of performance that
there you go.
It wants and is buying into and is willing to invest the time and the energy to take it there with our assistance. That's what we do. That's kind of the magic of what that's all about. All right, John, how do they get a hold of you? Great conversation today.
All right, yeah, thank you guys. This is really good. To get a hold of me, then it's right up there on the screen. It's JBURT at intelligentleadershipec.com. JBurt at intelligentleadershipec.com.
Outstanding. Thanks, JB. Loved having you here today. Thank you. All right, Rich, you know what to do. Take us home.
All right. Once again, thank you so much for joining us today. And like we've done in other podcasts, I'm going to give a big shout out to our folks in Australia and New Zealand who have been downloading our podcast, listening to us, and we certainly appreciate everything that you do, your support, and want you to know that we're going to keep going forward. We're going to keep talking about some great leadership topics and those things that impact leaders today. So leave us a message, Poddenbox / Mainline Executive Coaching ACT, or go to our website, mainlineleadersactilec.com. Schedule some time with us. Schedule some time with John Burt. Let's talk. Let's get you to that next level. So once again, thanks for your support. Have a great day. Take care and be safe.